Welcome to another episode of Tiny Nest. I'm
Jake. I'm just Jake. Kiva went away for a week and we forgot to film an intro, so it's just me.
In this episode, we show how we installed our
Wall panels.
Before we get started, just wanted to let you know what we used for our wall panels. We got this 1/4-inch plywood, and it's a mahogany grain door skin. It's not real mahogany, but it just has a nice sanded finish to it. And when we got them, we primed the side that we were going to paint, and then to save some money, we just got some bargain bin paint and slapped that on the back side just so that both sides were sealed.
Okay, it's kind of hard to see in the shot, but we have one panel up, and I'm just going to work on this next section, and I'll show you the sort of process that I'm going through. When I was deciding where to start our 16 center series of studs for the walls, I sort of biased it to help the exterior sheathing make that line up easily, like it would start right at the corner and then line right up with a 16 center stud, and then so on and so forth. But on the inside paneling, it's different in the sense that this corner here and this stud are not 16 inches on center from each other. But from this stud to the next one, and to the next one, and so on all the way until we get close to the other corner, is 16 on center. So it's tempting to start paneling in the corner, or like on one side of the wall, put the first panel here, and then just work your way down. But that wouldn't work, because if I put a full panel here, it's not going to line up. It would be down near this stud, but it wouldn't be right on, because it's from here over is not matching that spacing. So what I actually had to do was I just started on the stud that's right up against the loft here, centered this edge of the panel on the stud, and then of course with 16 spacing it works out, lands on this stud, and then this next panel I'm going to put right here, and this is actually slightly smaller than 16, so one panel will do this, and I just need to trim a few inches off of it. So that's going to work out great. And when we were planning out how many panels we were going to need, we were trying to figure out how to use as few panels as possible and make the most of them in terms of not having to cut a bunch of funky little pieces. So we knew that this is less than 8 feet from the end of the loft to this wall, so 2 panels would work. And same thing with up in the loft, we're going to turn the panels this way to get as much length this way, because that height is slightly less than 4 feet, so it's slightly less than the width, so we just going to need to trim that off. And so we sort of figure that out all over the place. The first step for this panel is going to be to slice it down. So I just measured what it is to here, allowed myself a little bit. I'm going to cut it slightly less than hard from the wall to this edge, so that I have a little bit of wiggle room. Then I'll make sure it fits, and then I can start marking and cutting out the window. And then the other thing will be just this wire that's going to be for LED under cabinet lighting. So I'll poke a little hole and make sure to pass this through the panel when it goes on. We don't want to bury anything by accident. Okay, I've got the table saw set to slice off the amount that I need, and I'm going to get a hand to wrangle this sheet. It's pretty light, but it's so flexy that I don't want it like bouncing and having trouble keeping it lined up, so give it a try. It's basically a shot of you.
What's that?
So now I just need to figure out how to mark where the window needs to be cut out of this panel, and I'm just sort of figuring it out as I go in terms of how to make sure I'm marking it accurately so that everything will line up, especially when there's multiple things that need to get cut out. This one's just got the window and the one wire, but this first panel had 3 like electrical type box penetrations and 2 small holes. So to get those and make sure they all lined up, like each one of them lined up and the panel went on properly, I basically was able to hold up the panel and get the first mark for one of the electrical boxes, and then just measured from that box to the next one, and then back to that original one to the next thing, and then back to that original one, so that I was always referencing that first thing that I knew was in the right, like at the right height. That way, at least everything was going to be relative to each other, they were going to line up. And so it worked quite well. And everywhere, like I've made a little piece of wood that's the size of a single gang electrical cutout, and it's actually a 1/2 inch wider and a 1/2 inch taller to allow me a 1/4 inch of wiggle room around the whole thing. And I'm going to stick with that throughout everything here, including around the windows and everything, to make sure that I have that wiggle room and I'm not like fitting it, it's not quite working, and then I've got to slice off just a hair to make it fit, and that's just a huge pain. So because everything's going to get covered with trim or electrical box plates and stuff, that whole, like a 1/4 inch seems like a lot, but it's going to be easily hidden later. So I'm making the work as simple as possible now. I'm just going to use a level like this and just make a tiny mark, probably just on the inside here, so like that. And then same thing on the bottom. So now I can hold the panel up, transfer my mark that I just made on this little edge here to my other panel, and then all I have to do for the width is measure it. So I'm just going to measure from here to here, and then from here to there, and then I can get the marks, and then I'll just draw it out and cut it out, probably with a skill saw. Okay, I don't know how easy it is to see, but I got my window marked out, and I just used a square to help me. I just sort of lined it up on the edge to make sure that I was coming across, level and perpendicular to this edge. So I got that marked out, and then I just need to do that wire for the under cabinet lighting, which is somewhere around here. So for the wire here, to get the distance from here to here, basically from the right edge of the panel, how far over I need to go to end up here, all I need to do is measure straight across this way. That's easy. But to get the height, or the vertical placement, what I'm going to do is measure from the bottom edge of the windowsill here up to the wire, figure out that amount. Then, since I've already marked this panel with the height of this bottom edge, I can just basically take that measurement that I just took, go from that mark and make a new mark, and then I just need to measure from the bottom of the panel up to that mark. Now I've got the amount from that bottom edge. So bottom edge up, side edge over. That'll give me the sort of coordinates of where this is, and then I'll just drill a little hole, and then that should be that for this panel. Okay, I'm gonna see if it fits. Try to wrangle this piece. Okay, I think it's pretty good. So, the one thing we're doing is, since we're taking the time to, stain the back sides of these panels and pre-prime the surfaces and everything to try to make them moisture proof in terms of humidity soaking in and then warping the wood. Now that we've cut and exposed the bare ply again, I'm gonna roughly sand in there just real quick and then prime just this tiny little edge. And it's mostly because if we leave these bare, these are right where all the penetrations are. So on the electrical boxes and the windows, of course, that's where air is going to be coming, in from outside and stuff. And if these are exposed right at that spot, that's like at the prime spot for it to absorb some kind of moisture. My touch-up primer is dry, so now all I have to do is affix the panel to the wall. So I've got a little finishing nailer here with 3/4 inch brad nails, and the panels are only about a 1/4 of an inch thick, so only about a 1/2 inch of the nail is actually going to penetrate into the studs. And this is good because when we were doing the electrical and the plumbing We talked about keeping things back from the face of the studs. I believe it's 1.25 inches is sort of the minimum. And then anything that was closer than that, we put a protection plate on. Other than hitting a protection plate, which would be bad, I can shoot these anywhere, and with only that 1/2 inch of penetration, I know I'm never going to hit anything in there. So I can just kind of go crazy and put as many as I feel I need to fix the thing nice and flat. So I'm going to get her done. After getting into a position that I felt is good, I just fire a couple in there. And the other thing I'm doing to prevent there from being any sort of bubbling or a spot that I can't push down, because if I fasten around the perimeter and the center is out a bit, I might have a hard time pushing it in because there's nowhere for it to kind of flex out. So I'm actually going up through the center first and then over to kind of, get it flat along a line here, and then sort of like fold it down like this, if that makes sense. Alright, here's the first 2 panels done, and pretty much just gonna carry on with the same process for everything else. Everywhere that we've got a vapor boot for low voltage or control or speakers or whatever, we're cutting out a hole like this in the paneling so that it can accept a little low voltage ring like this, and that'll allow us to put whatever kind of plate or whatever kind of fixture needs to go on for finishing. So this is the kind of thing that I got, and it's basically got these little tabs that are ribbed, and these basically just clip on, sort of like a zip tie, like it goes on one way and it can't come off. And they're nice and long so that you can slide it into if you had thick drywall or whatever, and you'll still have enough to bite. But since our panels are super thin, when these go in, there'll be a huge amount of extra, this little fin is going to be way in there. And in some cases we've got little conduits and stuff that it might interfere with. So I'm putting these in before I even put up the panel, getting them fully clipped on with these tabs, and then cutting off the excess fin there so that there's as little as possible and as least chance of interference as possible. A trick I'm going to try to help prevent me from missing a stud with the nails is, I know there's a stud right beside this joist, so I'm just going to put my level up sort of beside it and just get it level and hold it pretty much where if I shoot nails just right beside it, I'm pretty confident that the stud is, all the way down there, rather than just eyeballing it, maybe getting off and then shooting a bunch of nails into nothing. Worked pretty well. And I've got these little shims here just to keep it off the ground, so I'm not fighting the friction of the ground at any point. So now that it's up, I'll just take these little shims out and finish it off.
Now that we have the panels up, we have a few of these seams to deal with. This one here is going to be covered by trim, but the other ones we're going to have to fill so that we can paint over them. We considered both caulking and wood filler to fill the seams. The caulking obviously would provide a bit more flexibility, but we found that as it dried, it shrunk and didn't leave us with a smooth finish, where the wood filler makes the seams completely disappear, even though there's a higher risk of cracking. We don't plan on moving the house that often.
When filling in some of the seams, we encountered an issue created by some of our imprecise framing that we did early on. Like right here beside the window, there's a couple studs, and the one on the left is a bit proud, just because we weren't being super precise at that stage of the work. And we had originally thought that whatever paneling or strips of siding we were going to put up on the inside would just sort of deal with imperfections. But because this seam landed just, the way that the panels were, it landed right on this spot. So now this panel was a bit proud, is a bit proud of this one. So we couldn't just fill in the seam here flat. We actually had to basically splooge a bunch of the wood filler and kind of tool it like putty. You can kind of see that it comes way out on this side to make it as a smooth of a transition as possible. So now we just need to go over and sort of sand everything with sanding pads, both the walls that we've primed and all of our seams, especially ones like this where there's a lot of extra wood filler, until everything's as smooth as possible, and then we'll be able to paint and hopefully it'll all disappear. The only outside corners that we have to deal with the panels are on the fenders that we've boxed in. So in some places like this, which is going to be underneath the composting toilet box and underneath the kitchen cabinets and stuff, we just didn't bother. But spots that are going to be exposed, I basically just put a big thick bead of the wood filler into the corner, and then ran this piece of plastic that I custom made and cut out, just ran it along like this to sort of tool it into a smooth finish. And then of course we're going to sand this gently as well to try to make a curve, and then when we paint it, hopefully it'll disappear, and then also hopefully it'll stand up over time and won't crack and disintegrate, but we'll see how well it works.
So we're just about ready to paint. We've just sort of taped everything off. The only thing we have to worry about are the windows, window sills, and then our nice loft joist here. And also the door, we just threw some plastic over it and closed it. Alright, so we finished painting. It took us 3 coats to get it nice and even and to have the seams disappear. It's probably going to crack when we move it, but it looks really good right now. If you want to see some of our previous videos, click on the preview tiles, and subscribe if you want to follow our progress. You can also visit our website here.
Baby!
Okay.